Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Power Apps Learning Day 4. In today's class, we will learn about Power App Farms and Gallery controls. These two controls are the most important controls in Power Apps Canvas app implementation. Why these two controls are most important? The farms are the controls we use to submit the data, and galleries are the controls we use to present the data from the data source. And farms we use in three ways. One is to submit the data, edit the data, and the view the data of a particular record. I repeat, farm is a control we use to submit a record, edit a record, and view a record. Gallery we use to present the entire data set with filters, and also we use the gallery to present the data in a variety of uh, approaches, meaning if user want to present in row orientation, they can represent in a vertical vertical row orientation. If they want to present in in a column orientation, they can present in column orientation, which we will learn in this class. Again, one more time, if you have any questions, no hesitation. Okay. The first control we will be learning today is farm control. How do we insert a control? By clicking on the insert button here, or by clicking insert and select the farm control, right? So now let me add the first thing. Let me add the label for the heading. Standard is 70 pixel height, and followed by insert or farm control. Now,
Excuse me, sir.
go ahead.
Sir, కొంచెం జూమ్ చేస్తారా?
Deal Tali. 2 minutes. Let me know, ma, when you feel it is, visible and readable. Okay. Is that visible? Everybody in the last row. Cool. Okay. Now, I'm just setting up the heading. Uh, Thank you for asking. Last time manam anukunamu, but I forgot to do that. Notice the way how I'm setting the X, Y, and width and height of this control. Again, notice how I'm setting X, Y, height, and width of this farm control. First X position, I set it to 0, but whereas Y position, I'm setting it in such a way, LBL, FRM, heading, rename my label control as that. For the farm Y position, notice LBL FRM heading dot Y plus LBL heading FRM heading dot height. What I'm doing, the Y position of my farm control is the Y position of my label plus its height. This is called relative positioning. I repeat, this is called relative positioning. Why it is relative positioning? If I decrease the height of my farm, it automatically change the position of my, sorry, if I decrease the height of my label, the farm control will automatically get set appropriately with that label height. Notice that. Now 125. Did you notice that? The farm control is sitting right after my label control. This is called relative positioning. This is best practice we should implement in your screens. You should not write any control other than the top control on the screen with fixed x and y positions. In fact, fixed x, y, width, and height. Now, I know X position I have provided because I know the X position should be the leftmost. I'm going to use the entire screen width. Now, width of the screen is app dot width. This we already learned in the first class, isn't it? When I'm giving the width of my control to the entire screen width, app dot width is the formula. This is called a power fx formula, power functions formula. I repeat, this kind of formulas are called power fx formulas. Now the height is app dot active screen dot height minus self dot y. What I am doing, whatever the app active screen, whatever the screen I am in, that height minus its y position. So it automatically cut down the height of the label from the entire app height, isn't it? Hope you are able to follow me because this is a simple, very simple basic math, right? So this is the height of the entire screen followed by this self dot y position of that farm control. For a farm control, there are five important properties. I repeat, for a farm control, there are five important properties. Property number one, data source. The data source is the property where I will associate my farm with the database. What is the table which I am operating with this farm? Second one, the fields. What are all the fields I want to see on the farm? Number three, what is the mode of the farm? There are three different modes for the farm. They are edit, new, and view. When the farm is in edit mode, which means I am updating a record from the table. When the farm is in the new mode, I am adding a new record to the database. When I am when the farm is in a view mode, I am reading a particular record from that table. Property number 4, item property. I repeat, item. Item property is the property where I will associate what is the record ID or the what is the record I want to show in the form when the form is in edit and view mode. Last but not least, and very important property is form on success and on failure. Okay, once I submit the form, this property will get initiate. This property will give whether the farm got submitted successfully or not. Now let's go ahead and associate a farm with the data source. How do you associate a data source? By clicking the property data source here, or by clicking this and associate the data source here. The easiest approach is just select this drop down and select the table which you want to associate your form with. Now I want to associate my farm with employee details table. That is the SharePoint list I have associated before. Okay. The SharePoint is something we are using just for our learning, but eventually we are not using SharePoint as our data source. We will be using Dataverse is our data source. Okay. But will there be any difference, sir? There won't be any difference, but Dataverse will come with more capabilities. What are those capabilities? How it will add a value to your app? We will learn when we start learning Dataverse. Okay. So the first property, what it is that? What is the first property? Data source. We associated data source to the farm. The second property is fields. Now, if you notice, I got title, employee ID, choice field, plant, responsible, status, RTO, blah, blah, blah. But in this, I don't want attachments as part of my form. Assume that I don't want attachments to be part of my form. What I have to do is, how I can remove that is select that control and click delete one way, or the other way is select the form, go to edit fields, and under the fields it will show you all the controls or all the fields are part of that form. Now we can go to that particular field which you are not interested and click on this ellipsis icon, say remove. Boom, it's out of my screen now, out of my farm. But no, 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 no. My mistake. I wanted to see attachment controls as part of my farm. How could I add? Go to add fields. It will show you all the fields and you can select whichever the field you wanted to add it onto the form. Now select and add the form. Hope you are able to follow me, right? Good. So everything is good, but attachment control is having a huge height and it is just rendering inappropriately when I compare with the other controls. How could I play with that control dimension? Select that control and notice here X, Y, width and height. Just play with it. Unlock the control and 200. Or you can always, yes. Yeah, this control has to come down first, do 200, and then the outside control. For a farm, the other very important property is in the farm, the controls are not organized as an independent control. The controls are organized inside a data card. Each and every control come with each and every farm control or each and every field on the farm comes with data card. If you notice, I have these many data cards for each and every field. So what a data card will come with is four controls by default. One is to show star visible, error message, data card value, data card key. What are those? Star visible. If your field is a required field, which requires to show the user that whether it is required or not required, the star in the form means the field is a required field, which is what this star visible is for. Error message. If you have not provided the required field value, what happens is at the time of submitting the form, it says that field required. The default error message will come here. Data card value. This is where you will provide your text, or this is where you will see the value of this field when you are editing the control. Are you guys able to see? I have zoomed to the max. This is the max I could do it. Are you able to see the last row? Good. Data card key is the label or the heading of the field control. Okay. So when you add a form on the screen, it will come with these control by default. Okay. So in order to play with any data card height, width, or any positioning values, what you need to do is you need to first unlock the control. By default, these controls come in lock mode. What does that mean? When I come here, go to advanced, you will see this control is locked. You will have to unlock this control. Similarly, now if I come here, now I want to change the dimension of this attachment control. I want to reduce the height, whereas I want to increase the width. How could I do that? Is the data card will come with the height of the controls inside that. If the control height inside the data card is more, the data card control will come accordingly. Now if I want to reduce the height of this control, I need to reduce the control height. Now there it is. I have to reduce the control height, which is what is this control? This data card values control. Now I want to increase the width. How could I do that? Is there it is. This is how I can change my farm view. And the next control is, if you notice that, remember, when you drag the height of the control or decrease the height of the control, the formula whatever you have written will go off. So again, you need to set that formula. Now notice the way how I am going to set this formula this time. Last time what I did, app.active minus the label height is my high is the height of my control. But this time I'm going to add submit and cancel buttons here. Now see how I am going to do that. I'm going to add two buttons. One is for submit and the other one is for cancel. btn frm submit btn frm cancel. This is for cancel. And as my way, I am not interested to see button with border, so I'm just turning off the border. And I want to change the font size of this button value, probably with 18, so that it will be more readable. And now the farm height is app dot active screen dot height minus lbl frm heading dot height minus btn frm submit dot y position. Sorry, dot height. See that this why the y position did not work is y is here, so the height will automatically come in negative numbers because y is all the way at the bottom of the screen. When I just say minus y, it automatically turn to the negative numbers, rather the height of that control, because from the entire screen height I want to reduce the heading and my button height, isn't it? Buttons are all the way at the bottom. Now, even after that, the farm control is overriding on my buttons. So just reduce by 2 times of my height, of my button height. So it automatically comes with that height. So this is how I can set my farm control. Oops, why it is coming as no items to display? Because we added a farm control, but the farm default mode is edit. But we wanted to change the default mode of the farm to new farm, isn't it? First step is to add a new record. Now it is changing. Now my farm behavior change from edit farm to new farm. Now just click on play. There it is. Now I can submit or enter the farm details to submit the data to my table. The next important property of the farm is what? Item property, isn't it? What is that item property? When the item property is more useful is when I am editing an item or reading an item from the table. But now what I'm doing, I'm submitting the data as a new record. Let's understand and let's submit the data first. To ensure that my data is rendering properly, I'm going to open my database in a new tab. So this is my database. Now, to submit the data to the database, what I have to do is on select of the button, very simple, submit form of the farm name. The beauty with Power Apps is if you have not named your farm, your control on the farm with the proper naming convention, no rush. You can change the name of the farm at any name of the control at any point of time. Now imagine I have written the formula submit farm of farm one now. Now I realized that oops, I did not change my farm name. Now I went to the farm control. I mentioned that farm add or record operation. Notice what happens to the formula on the farm. Now if I go on to the formula on the button, it automatically updated my farm control. Farm control name got updated. Are you guys able to see that the last row students? So submit farm of the farm name. Now what happens if I play the app? I can submit the new record. Notice that. Now intentionally I'm not going to give the title. Employee ID is E One choice field is say like draft, parent plant is that, responsible blah blah blah, new RTO, email is sample at gmail.com, about employee, new employee, website is www.google.com, salary is 10, and flag is true. Recruitment flag is true. Manager is okay. My name. Now, notice what happens when I click on submit. See that? Hey boss, that is a required field. You missed it. I cannot submit the data. But whereas if I submit here as okay and say submit, that's a bummer. Repeat the error because this app was opened long back and the data source got added long back. Just when I refresh that, it addressed that issue. Now let me go back and enter the data. Let me add Gangadhar and employee ID is this. Choice is in review and new 8 say like Gangadhar at gmail.com, about employee, new employee, followed by www.google.com, salary, say like 5 lakhs. Is that okay, Gangadhar? Happy? Where are you, man? Happy? Okay, good. I'm going to be your manager. Okay, now I entered all the data. Now, once I enter all the data, I'm going to submit the data back to database. When I click on submit, huh, that's why the hell? So the issue is the website, it is expecting a proper website URL for some reason because the field was defined as URL or hyperlink. So that's why it is not able to submit. Now let's submit with Prasanna this time. Looks like Gangadhar's credentials were not happy. So let's say E002 in review. I've given some random URL and say 20,000 or probably 40,000 per month. Okay, happy? Now flag is true and followed by Krishna is you manage. Now when I click on submit, it should add the data. Once the data is added, let's go back to the data source and see whether the data got submitted properly or not. Now when I come here, I could see Prasanna's information clearly, right? Now, I don't want to see this no item to display after I submit the data. How could I address that? Remember one thing, once I submit the data on the form with the new form control, it immediately turns the form to edit mode. Though you mention that it immediately turns the form to the view mode because I submitted that, right? Now when it turns to the view mode, what I have to do, I have to show the recently submitted data so that user will not see the new items to display message. How could I do that? Again, what is the property I need to set? Item property. Item property. Go to the item property. Now, how do I know the recently submitted record is the farm name dot last submit? Whatever the record I submitted just before, it automatically comes with that formula. What I said, farm name dot last submit. Now, if I play this, the very same control will come here. Very same record will come. Now, if I click on submit, submit, what is happening? Oh, okay. It is not turning into any other control. The farm behavior is default, default value, default mode is new, right? So that is why it is showing up like that. Now once I submit the farm, once I submit the record, I need to change the farm mode to view mode. Okay. Now how do I do that is, if is blank of frm record dot last submit, then this is new mode. If not, what happens? The farm mode should be farm mode dot view. Now you see it automatically turned to this. You have any question? Anyone have any questions? I'm just repeating, okay? By default, farm will come with edit mode, and I change the mode to new mode, farm new record mode. But once I submit the farm, we are getting a message as no item to display, right? So in order to address that, we have applied item property of the farm to farm record operation dot last submit. This is the name of the farm, and last submit will return the recently submitted record values. Followed by that, what I did is the farm mode has to change once I submit a new record to appropriate mode. How I want that is blank. I'm validating, is my record recently submitted record is blank, or I have submitted any record. Is blank is to validate the record value coming from this formula or this statement. What is that? Farm last submit is blank, then only you show the record as new record. If not, show it as view farm. Okay, farm mode I'm operating like this. Now if I just play the app, and how do I reset the mode of the farm is reset farm of this. So this one will reset the farm. Now if I just say click, it automatically turns the farm mode to new mode because it releases the recent record also. I am resetting the farm. Whatever the farm control will hold, everything will get reset. I'm resetting the farm. Are you guys able to follow or not? Good. So now let's see one more time. Now look at the behavior of the farm. Now the farm behavior is farm mode is new farm. Now I click on submit. It submits the data and it should turn into display mode, view mode. Okay, let me repeat one more time. The important properties are data source, fields, and the default mode of the farm, and also, last but not least, item property of the farm. These are the important properties we have to know when we are operating or when we are using a farm control on the app. So in this, data source is to bind the table or the data source which you want to operate with, and default mode of the farm to change or the play what mode I wanted to show here. Here I wanted to play around the mode of the farm in such a way that if my last submitted record.id is not blank, then only you show it as a new. If not, show the farm mode as view. Now let's go ahead and play. I have also set my cancel button to reset the farm, which will reset the farm values and the mode of the farm to new farm. Play the app, click on reset, it automatically reset. Now again, say as, now if I click on submit, ideally it should go. Why the hell it is not going is my biggest concern. Okay, let's do the same thing in a different way. Let's add another screen. On this screen, I'm going to add one more farm, but this time I'm not going to do the farm with a submit operation, but rather I'm going to do the view. So how could I quickly replicate the screen is click on the ellipsis icon, click on duplicate screen. It automatically replicate the entire code and everything, every piece of information in the screen as a duplicate copy. Now I wanted to convert this farm in such a way that this farm mode is always view, whereas the farm item property is not this one, rather last alware submitted record. This we will pass it from the previous screen in such a way that submit the data and navigate the screen to screen 1_1, because that's the screen we recently copied. And now we say transition as none, followed by this variable. But in this, I wanted to provide the farm record dot last submit. Okay. Now what I'm doing, I'm taking user to a different screen. In that screen, I'm making user uh, to see the screen as default with view, and then I'm submitting, I'm providing the recently submitted record value to that. Now let's see how it will behave. There it is. It is not turning the farm control immediately to the view for some reason. Usually it should work. For some reason it is not working. I'll look into that probably tomorrow. I'll again one more time I'll touch base on that. For now, how you can play with that, the controls are like, I can turn the farm control mode to view or default by changing this mode here, and item property is the one which we provide with a record value which I am sending from my previous screen. Okay. But now, if I want to turn the very same farm into edit mode, how could I do that is I could add a pencil icon edit, there it is, edit icon on top of the screen. Now this, with this, I wanted to change the mode of the farm. Okay, from this is by default. Now what is the mode of the farm? This is view. Now I wanted to change the mode of the farm to edit mode. How can I do that? Is after click on select of this pencil icon, update context. Update context is to set what? Update context we use for what? To create a local variable, right? To create a local variable. Do you guys remember or no? We did discuss about this, right? Update context is to set a local variable. Set is to set a global variable. Create collection is to create a collection which is a data set. And collection is also a global variable. Did we or no? That was the second class. Okay, now I am changing. I wanted to change the mode of the farm. Var frm mode is farm mode dot edit, right? Now this one I wanted to apply for this farm mode, but default when I come onto this screen, what is the farm mode should be? The farm mode should be view, right? So on select of this, okay, display mode of this is gone. Now farm, select the farm. For that farm, the default mode, I'm setting it to that variable. But as and when I command to the screen, I don't want the farm to be in edit mode. Default, by default, what I want is the display mode, right? So now that one I need to set at the screen on visible property. Screen has a property called on visible. The time I come onto the screen, what is the mode I want, which is view mode. So select the screen on visible property. I am setting the view value for that my local variable, which means that as and when user come onto the screen, the view the value of that screen is the mode of the farm is view. But when user click on this pencil icon, the mode of the farm is edit. Now let's play and see how it will behave. Now I play and say Ketana hyphen 11 and click on submit. By default it showed in the view, which is what we want, and when I click on the pencil it turned to edit mode. Got it? So what did we do? We just set the value of the farm mode by clicking on this button to edit. Important. Are you guys able to follow, or you want me to repeat one more time? Once the farm mode edit turns into edit mode, user can update the data. Now if I just say submit, it automatically submit the data back to database. Now if I go and look at my data, refresh the database SharePoint list, I can see the updated value as Ketana 12. Okay, that is how we can play with the farm control. Now, last time somebody asked, sir, how could I see the variables in the app? Click on this ellipsis icon and click on the variables. It will take you to a place where it will show you all the variables which are used in the app. If you notice, there is a section called global variables and there is a section for each and every screen. When you click on the screen, whatever the variables you see, those are the variables which are at the screen level. Those are called local variables. When I go on to global variables, that is when it will show you the variables which are at the global level or the app level. And where could I see a collection is when you click on collections here, this is where you could see the collections. Since we have not created any collections, as of now, we do not see anything here. Okay. Was that question answered? I think like, so this is how we control the farm control and operate with the data record. Now, a next very important control in Canvas app is gallery. Similar. How do we insert a control? By clicking on insert or by clicking insert here. Now, just say gallery in this search box. In Canvas app, there are three type of galleries. In Canvas app, there are three type of galleries. Though it shows six, there are only three types. What are those? Vertical gallery, horizontal gallery, flexible height gallery. Repeat. Vertical gallery, horizontal gallery, flexible height gallery. Vertical gallery without any controls is blank vertical gallery. Vertical gallery, oh, sorry, horizontal gallery without controls is blank horizontal gallery. Flexible height gallery without any controls is blank flexible height gallery. Though you add a flexible height gallery, if you want to turn that flexible height gallery, you can change the behavior of that gallery by changing the layout of the control, which we will see in a minute. Now let's explore the vertical gallery first. So when you add a vertical gallery, it comes with some default controls, and also it automatically get associated with one dummy data set to that gallery. But if you are not if you want to associate your data, what are the important properties for gallery is data source, items, fields, layouts. These are all the important properties. I repeat, data source, fields, layout, items, last but not least, visible. Visible is to show and hide. Very simple. Just visible is to show and hide the control. Now, I wanted to associate my employee details to my gallery. Now, when I select that, it automatically updates. But remember, this vertical gallery has come up with a default layout which comes with some default controls in it. Now, if I want to change my behavior of that control, the behavior of the gallery, you can always change the behavior of my layout. See this? These are all the different layouts I can change to my gallery. Let me reduce a bit. When I select the gallery, now these are all the seven different types. In fact, some more. So if we see this, the default layout it got applied is image, title, and subtitle. If I do not want that, if I want my gallery to be a blank vertical gallery, I can select it as a blank. It automatically wipe out all the controls. Default controls come with the gallery. Now, if I just change it to title layout, it comes with one control. How do I know it come with one control? Come here and expand this. It shows you what are all the controls. If you notice, this is a separator line, and this is the next arrow, and this is the control which renders the data on the gallery. Okay. Now, again, if I switch to any other layout, say like title and subtitle, it comes with two controls. See this, title and subtitle, which is fine. I have Two controls, maximum three controls. But what if I want six to seven controls on my gallery? How could I do that is you can always change the positioning of the controls on the gallery. What is the name of this the gallery? Blank, sorry, vertical gallery. As I mentioned, in vertical gallery, the records will be organized in a vertical fashion, like the way how you stack the books on your table. Okay. But what is the difference between a vertical gallery and horizontal gallery? In horizontal gallery, records will be organized the way how you place the books in a rack. In the library, how you place books will be placed like this, right? So similarly, in a horizontal gallery, the records will be rendered in a horizontal fashion. Now if I want to organize my screen with more values or more columns or more fields as part of my gallery, how could I do that is, first thing, as I said, 0th position is my X position, and let me add the label of the heading of this screen as gallery. Did I spell absolutely wrong? Yes. Gallery control, and change the font of the control to 25, and font mode is to bold, say it white, and background color to blue, and alignment as to middle. Now I have the gallery label with the heading as LBL gallery heading. Now this is the one I'm going to use to place the gallery height in a relative formula. What is the height? What is the Y position? Y position of this gallery is label heading Y position plus label height. So it automatically come right next to that control, right? Now, what is the width of my gallery? App dot width. Now it's stretched all the way to my screen width. Now what I need to do, I need to arrange these controls in such a way that I can add more and more controls on the gallery. So just decrease the width of this control to an extent you feel that this is appropriate width. There is no hard and fast and rule that this is the width you need to use. It is always depends on the data you are presenting in that control. If you are presenting the data which is going to be an address which will come with more data, so increase the width and height also. The next control is this is the id of my record, so I do not need this much more. This would be maximum width. So now I just want to place this as my second control, and this I want to place this as my first control. Gallery is a control where it renders the controls repeatedly. If you notice, the controls in my gallery, there are only four controls, but I see the same controls repeatedly in my gallery, right? This is the behavior of the gallery. Now I just added id and title also. If I want to add more controls to my gallery, how could I do that is, you need to select the gallery and then click on the pencil icon. When you click on the pencil icon, it will let you add new controls to the gallery. Now I add one more label. When you add label, it automatically associate with one of the field in your data source. If you are okay with that, well and good. If you are not okay with that particular value, you can go to the text property of that label and you can change the appropriate field name. this item is to point that particular record. Now, how could I change that field of that record? As this item dot whatever the field it is. Now, if you say this item dot, it will show you all the fields of your SharePoint list or dataverse table. Whatever is the data source. In that data source, what are all the fields you have as part of the table will render here. Now, email. Now it will render the email. Now my email is not rendering properly because the height of my label and the width of the label is not sufficient enough. Now a label has a different or a particular property called auto height. When you turn on that, see that it automatically adjusts the height of the label with the text whatever I am rendering in it. Okay. Now, if I want to increase the width, you have to increase the width manually. There is no flexible width for a label when you are using in a gallery. How could I change the flex width of a label flexibly is when you add the control the label inside a responsive container, which we will learn down the line. Okay. Now I have added one, two, three. Third control also I have added. Now, when you notice this gallery is rendering the data, but I don't know what column is what. So what I have to do, I have to give a proper heading to my gallery. Before that, the heading we can write at any point of time. Now, I want to restrict the data in this gallery with some filters. I do not want to render all the data. I want to render only a particular scenario. That time, what do we do is we play with items property of this gallery. Okay, how do we do? We will come to know. Before that, let us see how many records we have in this SharePoint list. When I come here and go to site content of my SharePoint list, employee details is the table which I have 19 records only. Okay, let's go ahead and associate this record which have 21,000 to which went sorry 2 lakhs records in that. Okay, let's associate this table to see a different behavior of my gallery. How could I do that? As go to data source, say SharePoint, practice this data set, which is more than 2 lakhs records in it. And now I wanted to change the association to this. Now here I do not have email, so what it did not show the data, rather it turned out to be an error. Now say dot city, and this one, let's say it as full name. Gallery in Canvas app has a behavior that it by default load 100 records. What about the next record? What about the remaining records? The time user go all the way to the 100th record, gallery will load the next set of records. Now if I play the app and scroll down, did you notice that? The scroller size went little down. Now if I just scroll all the way down, one more. Because it loads 100 records as a batch. Okay. So how do I know how many records are there on my gallery? Add a label and just put it here. Count rows of gallery 1 dot all items. See that how many records are there? 300 records. Just to be very clear, now I have 300 records. Now if I scroll all the way down, became 400. How many records loaded? 400 records got loaded. 100 records got loaded. One more time, 500. So that is how gallery will load the data into the gallery. Sir, if it is the case, how it will behave in a filter scenario doesn't matter. At any time, whatever the data source, with filters or without filters, it will load only 100 record, the first 100 records. When user go all the way down to the 100th record, it will load the next set with respect to the formula whatever has been added as part of your data source. Now, if you data source has any filters. Now let's go ahead and write a filter query on my data source. Now go to data source, items. How do I write a filter? As the name says filter, go to filter, filter. It The first parameter for filter is what is your data source? What is the table name? Comma, what is your criteria? What is your condition to filter your data? Now there is a field called A's in years. I have. Okay. Now say that A's in years is greater than 35. Now add one more control on the screen to show you the age. Now if you see the age which is greater than 35 will only come under this record. Now if I change that filter to 25, it will start render the data where my data is less than 35 also. If you see here the data, here the age is 31. That is how I can filter my data with respect to a particular condition, which is fine. But what if I want to filter my data by providing a dynamic value? So I'm okay. If I change the value under a formula, it is working. But I want to give a flexibility to my user, wherein user will enter the age in a text box. The respective data should come in here. How could I do that? Is add a new text box on the gallery, sorry, on the screen. And now this is to enter the data, enter the age, enter age value. Okay. Now I don't want input text to be by default. By default, I want to give the default value as 30. Now come here, select the gallery. Here, what I want is text input 1 because I have not changed it. No, that is not the control. What is the name of this control? Txt age value. Now come here. Txt age value dot text. Why it is not rendering is the formula is returning a text value, but I need to validate with an integer value, right? So say value of that will convert my text value to number. By default, a text box will return the data type in string. Now I need to convert that string to integer. So how do I convert that is value function will convert a string value to integer. value of the text box dot text, now it converted to integer. Now play the value, play the app, say 20. Now it will render all the data with 20. Now say 45, isn't it? It's changing the data which is rendering on the gallery. Now if I say 10, now you see the data is coming with 20s also. 27 is also here. That is how I can filter my data. Okay. Now if I want to select a record in the gallery, how I could select and how I could operate that into the data source, how I could just submit back to data source. This is my gallery. Now I want to add a farm control here because I wanted to update these records by selecting whichever the record I want and then submit back to data source. Now what I have wanted to insert is a farm. Now I'm going to insert a farm here. For this farm also I need to provide the same data source. Now I added the data source, associated the data source to the farm control. Now what I need to do, I need to provide what is the item property of this farm control. What is the item property for this farm control is gallery one dot selected. So what does that mean is whatever the record I selected in the gallery renders into the farm. Okay. In a gallery, by default, the first record will be selected. If you do not want to happen that, oh my goodness, I selected the wrong control. Select the gallery. Under gallery default, you just say this. When you say this, oh my goodness, not default. One second. I forgot that property. I'll tell you. I'll tell you that tomorrow. Okay. Basically, when you by default when you add a gallery, the first record will be selected. So what I see this record here. Now if I now once I update the data, I want to set the data back to data source. How do I do that? On the floppy disk icon. Let me change this value to white so that I can see. Submit form. Again, the same formula we use. What is that? Submit form of this form one, which is this form, which is the form on the control. Now, after the submission, what do? We need to say reset form. If not, we will again see the same behavior as the item not found or error message. So reset form, it will just reset the farm data. Okay. Now in case if you do not want to submit and if you want to cancel your changes, you can always say reset farm of farm 1. Now play the app, select this, notice the value getting changed. Whatever the record I select on the gallery, the appropriate value will render here, because the value of this form is gallery dot selected. Whatever the record selected in the gallery, it will render under this form. Now say Samuel hyphen updated. If I do not want to submit this data, I can click on that. It automatically reset all the changes on the form. Are you able to follow? Because this is the control you will use in your app to submit the data to your data source. How do you enter the data? This is the only way. This is the quick and only way. If you do not want to submit the data back to data source, you will have to add independent controls and use a function called patch, which we will learn in the next class. So if you want to submit the data straight away without using any complex PowerFX formulas, the quick method is add a form, provide the data to the form, submit the data back to the data source. Okay. Now I wanted to update the data, hyphen updated, say submit. Now it got updated to the backend data source successfully. Now, how do I know that is go back to the data source and look at the refresh this data source and look at the name wherein filter by what is that record? Oh God. Oh, I am looking at the wrong value. We need to look at this first name because we updated the first name. See this? The record got updated successfully on the backend with the name as first name. First name as Samuel updated. That is how we can quickly update the data in the backend database with respect to the gallery. Any questions so far? In this screen, we associated a gallery with a form, and also we are submitting the updated values back to the data source by providing the new values with the formula called submit form. Okay, clear? Can I go on to the uh, next type of gallery? And the next type of gallery is horizontal gallery. We just learned vertical gallery. What is the next type of gallery is horizontal gallery. In this approach, we render the data in a horizontal way. My bad. Let me create a brand new screen. SCR horizontal gallery. Let's add a horizontal gallery in this horizontal gallery. Observe the way how the records are orienting in this gallery. The records are oriented in a horizontal fashion, isn't it? Just before, the records were oriented in vertical fashion, but in this, the records were oriented in horizontal fashion. One important thing is when you are adding a gallery into the screen, you need to understand and study how you want to render your data. Once you add gallery, once you are done with your implementation, once you write every formula, every validation, you cannot change the type of the gallery. All you could do is you can change the layout associated with the gallery, but you cannot change the orientation of the gallery. Once you add a horizontal gallery, you cannot change the gallery orientation to vertical. It's not possible, it's not supported. Is that clear? Now, the next type of gallery is flexible height gallery, my personal choice. Flexible height gallery is my personal choice. The reason behind this is flexible height gallery will change the row height depending on the data which is rendering in the gallery. What is that exactly means? When I come into this, now notice the way how this control is. Now I say auto height to true, and now if I just say the same value, concatenating the same value twice, the ampersand in Canvas app to concatenate two strings. Now, if I just assume that my username is such a big name, and when I say auto height true and say that it is floating onto the next row, if it is the flexible height gallery, it doesn't behave like that. It automatically set the row height to the value rendering inside that row. If this record has more height, the row height of that particular record will associate with that. Okay? Are you able to follow? Let us see how does that get associate in case of flexible height gallery. Now, the first property we need to set is the data source. And now I wanted to change the layout to blank and then adjust the width. Before anything, add a label to the screen to say what is this control we are working on. Flexible height gallery. This one 25. Okay. Now I have associated the data source. What is the next element we need to associate or the fields how I wanted to render. Look at the height of this row. The row height is rendering here. This one, if I say 25, see that? It automatically changed the 21. Now if I just drag it 45, it automatically it should automatically change the height. Why the hell it's not changing? That will change when you start adding the control. Once add the control height, if I change the control height to say 45, that is still it is overlapping, right? But look at this gallery. Okay, the gallery. Okay, oh, my goodness, I changed gallery height, not the control height. My bad. So when I just want to change the height of this particular row, how I wanted to do that is go to this item under this the label. If you notice now I wanted to say full name for this control, and again here also I wanted to append three times and see how it will behave. So how I can change the height of this gallery is flexible height gallery. When you play that, notice the rows how it is rendering. It is also overlapping. Okay, let me just say this with one more control called rectangle. Add the rectangle and x position is 0, y position is right next to that control. Okay, which we will say in a minute. App dot parent dot width and height is 1 pixel. So it shows the line separator for each and every row. Now, if you see, each and every row is separated with a line in that, but I still see the data is truncating or the data is not rendering properly, isn't it? The data is not rendering properly.